Will you all bow your heads? Lord, we give you thanks that we have on this Monday time to be together, to reflect on our community. We thank you for this time to just have time to reflect. Make us aware of what your will is, and may we continue this week to do as you wish. We ask you to bless this food to our bodies and us to thy service. In Christ's name, amen.
We'll introduce our visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon. All right. We have one visiting Rotarian, Julian Wilson. If we stand from 5 points. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And then if all of our guests would stand, and we're going to have somebody come around with a microphone, if you will introduce your guests.
Hello everyone, my name is Hunter Wilson. I have a special guest with me, Sam Montgomery. She's the Chief Strategy Officer for a little-known company called JJE, which is the parent company of a better-known company, Palmetto State Armory. She's served 17 years in the Army National Guard, and she's a major. So, welcome, Sam.
I'm Kay Shaw, and the Scholarship Committee is very pleased to have as our guest today Kennedy Fee. Kennedy is a 2018 winner of our scholarship, and she is a rising sophomore at Clemson University studying nursing. In addition, we have Ashley Fee, Kennedy's mom, who's done a great job of rearing this girl. So thank you.
I'm Jim Morris with the South Carolina Council on Economic Education, and I have with me Charlie Griswold, who is our intern. He's a rising senior at the Governor's Schools for Science and Math, and he is from Bluffton.
I'm Lane Ligon, and my guest today is Jason Snyder. He is a former member of this club and is interested in maybe rejoining with us. Give Jason a hand.
Thank you. Welcome.
So tall. Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Now, health and happiness, Roger Stroop.
Thank you, President Louisa. And I'll start with the sad news. Matt Kennel told me on the way in that he lost his mother in June. He's been away. This is his first meeting back, so we give him our sympathy. Rusty the Past wanted to point out that we have a new way you can come to Rotary. Where's Andy Walker? He's got shorts on today, which is something new, I think. So we'll see. Oh, he left. He was on his way to the golf course. He just stopped by for lunch, I guess. And on his way in, Andrew Clarkson let me know that yesterday was Margaret's birthday, Margaret Clarkson. And today is his anniversary, but his wife didn't think coming to Rotary would suffice, so she didn't come with him. As y'all know, we started working on the records of the club last week, and thanks to those of you who already helped us with that. We got them kind of boxed and in groupings, and now we're waiting to hear from the Caroliniana. But it made me start thinking. Last week, our speaker mentioned that she was privileged to be using the same podium that I think she mentioned Barbara Bush and John McCain. And I thought from our history, I might just give you a little history of a few folks who have spoken to this club over the years. Of course, we've always had governors and senators and politicians, and the mayor and Fort Jackson commander are here frequently, but just a few other kind of folks that you may not have known who spoke to the club. In 1923, the evangelist Billy Sunday, does anybody know who that is or was? Spoke to the club. And then in 1949, the speaker was a up and rising young man from Charlotte, North Carolina named Billy Graham. Other sort of major speakers that we've had over the years are William Buckley, at that time, and then Senator Joe Biden. Barbara Bush spoke to the club not too long ago, and John McCain has been here twice. We've had 2 Rotary International presidents who've spoken to the club. One of those was in 1957 at our 40th anniversary. Paolo Lang from Italy was a Rotary International president. In 2016, for our 100th anniversary, we had John German from Chattanooga as the president of the Rotary International here for that program. So that's just a few of them. One of the things we have, which is really kind of neat, is the first minute book from the club. This goes from 1916 to 1920, and then I've got another one that's 20 to 24. And the other day I was looking through it and I thought I might give you an idea of the Rotary Club meetings. This meeting, I'm going to read from the January 23rd, 1920 meeting, which was at the Jefferson Hotel, which is where we met until 1927, from our founding in 1916. The meeting was held from 2 to 3 o'clock, and this was a monthly meeting. We met monthly up at that point in time. The meeting was opened by singing, and then the invocation, much as we do today. Guests were introduced. There were about 15 guests. The club was in the process of trying to expand itself. After the guests, some folks actually sang the song Little Prairie Flower. This was done by a group of Rotarians. And then Doc Lye called attention to the fact that several members of the club were guilty of undue exposure of person, and several bald-headed members were called forward and presented with paper hats. And then a shuttle of thread, y'all know what a shuttle is, of thread was passed around each table. Every member took hold of it and passed it on. There was a piece of silk tied to it, and when it stopped, whoever was holding that piece of silk had to get up and tell stories, and that happened to be Clint Haywood that day. Then William Elliott spoke about the development of cotton manufacturing and Pacific Mills, which at that point was just getting underway, followed by Mr. Edward Green from Boston, who was in town actually working with the folks at the mill itself. And the district governor spoke, and I won't tell you what he said because you've heard the district governor speak. They've been saying the same thing since 1920. And the president then pointed out that the district meeting was in Greenville and encouraged people to go. President Louisa, we encourage you to go to the district conference coming up in the spring sometime. And then there were some papers passed around on Rotary. So that gives you an idea. They did all this and they closed by singing Old Lang Syne. So we've always been a singing club. So I'm going to leave you not with a thought for the day, but I'm going to leave you with what was the Rotary motto from the time it was founded in 1905 up into the late 1920s. Today we know the motto is, of course, service above self. The motto before that was, he profits most who serves best. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you, Roger. It's always interesting to have you speak. Okay, I just have a few announcements. One, I want to tell you about the records purge. We could not have done it without the brains and the brawn, Roger Stroop, that helped us immensely, and also Elliot. I don't know if he's here, Elliot Powell. Wonderful help. We went through, and now everything is ready for the Caroliniana Library to come pick and choose what they can use to keep for us and what not. And Capital Consultants has graciously agreed to keep the last 7 years and keep it up to date of our financial records, so I think we're pretty good. But that was a huge, mammoth deal, so many thanks to Roger and Ellie. Sign-up sheets. I hope there are enough on your tables for you to use for the committee sign-ups. We also have committees as well as service projects and socials. I just feel like if we can all work together on committees, that we'll have a better year, a better Rotary year. So I'm hoping that all of you will do something. When you complete those, there is a box going out the door, sort of a woven looking box. That's kind of where the name tags are. Just stick them in there. And I'm going to put them on tables this week and next week and hope that we can get all these committees going by the 1st of August. So thank you very much for your cooperation. And now, Fireflies, the 26th. See Blake, if you still need tickets. It should be a fun night for Rotary. Now, John Denise will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President Louisa. I can't tell you guys how excited I am. I've been in Rotary for a really long time. It's the first time I've got a speaker, so the microphone is kind of at the right place for me when I get up there, because I'm going to get parties and stuff. And then I realized I'm introducing Bob Quinn, and I know Bob, we serve on the board together. He's like 7.5 feet tall too, so much like his predecessor from SCRA. And now, Jack Hupp, I'm going to call you out, because I got a friend in Charlotte, and she was a member of the Charlotte Rotary Club, and I told her I was on my way to Rotary. She said, oh, I used to be a Rotarian. She said there was this one table with all these World War II vets, and she said you kind of had to be invited to sit at this table. And I, was really excited when I finally got invited to sit at this table. And she said, and then I realized why it was a big deal to be at that table, and why they got there early, and why they stayed late. They brought their own wine and hid it under the table, and so everybody at that table got wine. So y'all, if Jack Hupp invites you, be ready. That might be why that's the happy table. And why Jack never moves around. Jack is always in the same spot. So, we'll do a little check afterwards. But today it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Quinn. As I said, Bob is I want to say the new Executive Director of SCRA, because I'm very bad with time. It's been 3 years that Bob has been in this role. He took over from Bill Mahoney, who did a great job. And SCRA has been very active in not only the state, but in Columbia with economic development and all things technology related. And hopefully Bob will get a lot into that. And if he doesn't, there'll be some good questions, because SCRA does a lot of things and a lot of people don't know much about them. But so Bob and his wife, he lives in Somerville. He's got 3 grown kids. And the important thing about his family is that his wife is a very strong Gamecock fan. So he's got that, he got introduced to that and got indoctrinated, so he's familiar with how things go in the South, especially in the fall. So, so Bob leads SCRA, and they fuel South Carolina's innovation economy by accelerating technology-enabled growth in research, academia, entrepreneurship, and industry. Prior to joining SCRA, Bob worked in various roles throughout industry, most recently with Battelle Memorial Institute and its affiliated companies. He was the managing director of a Battelle subsidiary called 360 IP, an international investment fund management and commercialization company headquartered in Singapore. Previous assignments included the VP of Technology and Commercialization and VP of Environmental Science and Technology at Battelle as well. He's worked at Oak Ridge National Lab. His current board participation includes South Carolina Economic, Council on Economic Education. So Bob and I both missed our last meeting, so we're a little bit fuzzy on that one. But they also participate in the USC Technology Incubator Board, the Central South Carolina Alliance, Charleston Regional Development Alliance. As you know, SCRA is a statewide group. Bob holds a BA from Rutgers, an MA from George Washington, and he also completed the Executive Management Program through Stanford International Business School and at the National University of Singapore. And he's a certified licensing professional, which I don't know what that means, but maybe you can explain that to us too. So with that, I give you Bob Quinn.
See, I'm going to put was up. What John didn't mention is that I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Somerville, and so as such, it's an honor to speak to one of the largest and most vibrant clubs in our district. Wow, Billy Graham, to be included among the ranks of Billy Graham. The phrase, since I'm speaking today, the phrase, and now there's something completely different, comes to mind. So, who has never heard of SCRA? Okay. I got the guy from Pittsburgh that's never heard of SCRA. We have changed substantially over the last 3 years, and so often I spend more time describing what we're doing to those that have a familiarity with the organization than those that are hearing about us for the first time. So I look forward to updating you on how our organization continues to evolve.
You might need to turn it on.
It always helps. So we were founded in 1983 by the General Assembly, and we are a public nonprofit corporation. So as such, we are officially considered a state agency, but we do not receive any direct funding from the state. So it's similar to the State Ports Authority. I jokingly say we have all the responsibilities of a state agency and we get none of the direct funding, so it's the worst of all worlds. But in reality, we have, as an authority, a lot more flexibility than a traditional state agency has. As John alluded in his introductory remarks, our mission is to fuel South Carolina's innovation economy. And we do that by accelerating technology-enabled growth in research, for academia, entrepreneurs, and industry. And we support those individual client constituencies separately, but where the real magic happens is the intersection of two or more of them, and really creating linkages and long-term relationships with them. We own and manage a series of facilities around the state, including the Innovation Center right down the street, corner of Catawba and Assembly. And often those facilities serve as a catalyst or a foundation for these relationships between and among our clients. Thank you. In terms of the industries that we focus, they're pretty broad. Information technology, life sciences, and advanced materials and manufacturing. And once again, we really focus on the nexus of two or more of those industries. So areas such as healthcare, IT would be a good example of that intersection. As a relatively small organization, we are fortunate to have a large impact on the state of South Carolina. Every year we have Joey Van Messen from the University of South Carolina do an analysis of a total economic impact that we have on the state. And over the last 2 years, the average has been just short of $600 million or $700 million. In terms of number of jobs, South Carolina-based jobs that we have facilitated the creation of on an annual basis, just short of 4,100 jobs. And there are 42 companies that are located within our facilities. So I want to go through each of those client areas and highlight the services and products that we bring to them. First being entrepreneurs, and that's done through our what's called an SC Launch organization or program. Those that apply to be members or clients within the SC Launch, not everyone who applies is accepted. You have to be at a certain level of maturity in order to get the most out of our program, and often we don't say no, but not yet. And we have built a vibrant ecosystem of incubators, such as the USC incubator, accelerators, organizations like SCORE and small business development centers throughout the state. And for those companies that aren't quite ready for us, we'll then introduce them to those other resources and then monitor them very carefully. And then later on, they can come back and reapply. Once you are part of the program, you're eligible for a variety of services. First and foremost is mentoring. not only by our staff, who are made up of those that have been there and done that and created their own businesses and had successful exits, but we've also built a network of research partners throughout the state, lawyers, accountants, business professionals, who provide their services at a reduced and sometimes pro bono basis. You're also eligible to receive a variety of grants, and I'll highlight those in my presentation, and then also to get an investment from SC Launch Inc. I'll give you more detail on that as well. And I'll start doing that right now. In terms of grants, we have a variety depending on where the company is and its maturity level. From early stage, called Project Development Fund grants, up to $25,000. It's helped to do a proof of concept for a product, for example. And then as the company evolves and gets more mature, they're eligible what's called acceleration grants. And these are to poise the company to approach the SC Launching board for an investment. So it's further de-risking from either a technology and or business standpoint, and really to help them sort of get over what's often called the valley of death, where a company gets up to a certain level and void of certain resources, they either wither and die, or in some cases they'll go where the funding is available out of state. We want to keep them in state and to grow South Carolina's economy. Now, as a state-affiliated organization, we are constitutionally banned from making direct investments ourselves. So, as such, we created an affiliate called SC Launch Incorporated, SC Launch Inc. And so, SCRA does all of the vetting of the companies, the due diligence to ensure that they are the right type of company to receive these investments, but the actual investment decisions are made by the board at SC Launch Inc., which is comprised of 9 volunteers, some of them active business professionals, some retired, chaired by Peter Dunphy, who is the CFO of one of the affiliates of Michelin. A fantastic board, and includes actually Mr. Wiggins, who was the former CIO of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and he provides a great service to our companies as well. And so then the actual equity is held by SC Launch Inc. as well. A typical tranche or phase of investment would run in the area of $200,000. I have a highlight of an example of a company where we invested $300,000. And we're actually looking at our investment policy statement to give us even greater latitude in that regard. Because often we are the first investor beyond friends and family for a company. So as such, we're taking up a lot of risk. And void of being able to then make follow-on investments at an appreciable level, for those that are succeeding, that's where you start getting your money back, as being, or increasing your return by participating in those follow-on rounds. And so we're looking to be more aggressive in that regard as well. Here's just one representative example. It's local, it's very local. They're literally down the street on Shop Road, and that's Zverse. They have a highly innovative approach to help facilitate 3D printing, 3D manufacturing in real time. So traditionally, in order to do 3D printing, you first have to develop a CAD drawing, which is costly and time intensive. They're able to take just a 2D rendering of a product and do a 3D manufacturing based on that. A real game changer. And as such, they've made a number of strategic relationships, and this company is really establishing great traction. Well, we invested $300,000 in them because beyond our normal level, because of how much we believe that they are a smart investment. I'm going to do a video of another local company, which hopefully, it's always a gamble when you do a video. There we go, good.
First and foremost, HuntStand is an incredibly powerful piece of mapping software that allows people to really map out their land so they can understand things like property boundaries, roads and trails, food plots around it. Basically, in-pocket things that the hunter might hear about that they might want to share with somebody. South Carolina is an incredibly important place. I went to school out of state, but I wanted to move back here. This is where I'm from. This is where my roots are. And we've had a remarkable amount of support, both from SC Launch as well as private investors in the state. So I was hunting on a large piece of property in 2009. I didn't know where things were. I found it very frustrating because I was having to ask everyone, where is the stand, where's the trail, where does it go? And I was sitting in my stand after that, and I'm looking at myself and realized, I have Google Maps up here. This can really address every problem that I'm currently facing. We can annotate all these things and put them on top of this Google Maps server. 2011, I was studying for my international MBA at USC. There was a business plan competition. So I pulled that idea out of the drawer, kind of dusted it off, and I pitched it to my classmates.
In most of our entrepreneurship courses, we've got projects where the students actually build a real company. And in fact, TerraStride was Len Holloway's project in our class.
The app launched officially towards the very end of 2013. We put $0 behind it in terms of marketing, and we received about 60,000 downloads in a month and a half. So the app also has a lot of very powerful measurement tools in it. Furthermore, we have a patent pending on a piece of technology. Again, we call it the Hunt Zone. The Hunt Zone shows you where your scent is going to be blown both instantaneously and up to 3 days into the future. So I started working with the SC Launch program as part of the SCRA, honestly back in 2013. The investment that we received from SC Launch really enabled us to grow and expand what we do. The diligence process at SC Launch was very helpful because it gave our investors a high level of comfort that we had gone through a very professional and worthwhile vetting process. HuntStand has grown remarkably quickly. We passed 1 million downloads in December of 2016. In the first part of 2017, we were recognized by Outdoor Life, the most popular outdoor publication, as the #1 hunting app in the country. The brokerage software became a very obvious offshoot of the HuntStand project back in about 2014. We could easily apply that same technology to the land brokerage world so that people would take virtual tours of high-value tracts of property. Our land brokerage software now has about $6.5 billion worth of property listed. So one of the next phases for our project is we're getting involved in map printing. Had a lot of requests for exactly that, for printed maps. So we spoke with the guys at Google, and we were able to negotiate a license agreement. And now we can print ultra-high resolution images from Google Maps. And that's the next stage for our company. That product should be out in several weeks.
So that was produced a few months ago. That product is now out and is selling very well. In addition, over the last few months, they have consummated strategic relationships with Capella, with Bass Pro Shops, and others. So you can see them in your local store. They're doing exceedingly well. So just the SC Launch program alone, responsible for facilitating the creation of some 2,700 South Carolina-based jobs. And I focus on South Carolina-based because indeed that is our primary focus. There are ancillary benefits in that many of these companies also have operations out of state as well. And so cumulatively these numbers are substantially higher. But sticking with our primary focus, I try to then very much hone in on the South Carolina-based impact. One of the metrics we monitor carefully is follow-on funding. Combined of both investments and grants, we have provided about a little over $48 million to date to these early stage companies. That has led to follow-on investments from venture capitalists, angel investors, corporate strategic investors, now over $1 billion. Actually, it's close to 1.1 billion now. As a former venture capitalist myself, I recognize that as a very compelling leverage to go from 48 to over $1 billion. It's a real testament to the quality of the companies in which we are investing. And considering how early stage that is, I'm particularly proud of that metric. Another one I'm proud of is the average salary of the staff within our SC Launch client companies, over $71,000 a year. That's $30,000 a year more than the statewide average. So not only are we building a good number of jobs, these are high-paying jobs. Next, with regard to academia, if you look at the enabling legislation from back in 1983, there were 9 objectives included in that original law, and 5 of the 9 called out academic institutions. So clearly, it was in the mind of the legislators that this was a primary focus for our organization. And as such, over our 36-year history, it very much has been a prime focus. However, when I came on in 2016, up until that point, there was, I would call it more ad hoc. There was no strategic plan for how we go about working with academic institutions. And so in December of 2016, I signed a strategic cooperation agreement with the presidents of USC, MUSC, and Clemson, which serves as the foundation for our support not only to those 3 institutions, but all academic institutions throughout the state. A primary focus on public institutions, but certainly not exclusive at all, and we have done a lot of work with private as well. We focus on 3 major areas in our engagement. One is to support startup companies that are affiliated with those academic institutions. Second is to provide shared infrastructure, because we've identified examples where a university might spend a substantial amount of money on some instrumentation when that same instrumentation is at another university and it's not being fully engaged or fully implemented. So we facilitate that sharing of instrumentation. We also provide funding to increase our capabilities within the state. And then finally is the creation of research alliances, and I'll go into a little more detail on those. Once again, we provide a variety of grants, both directly to institutions, academic institutions, but also to their affiliated startup companies. What we're really trying to do is provide grant money that will prime the pump to create alliances between and among the universities. We're trying to facilitate ways so that USC and Clemson will only compete against each other on the football field and not going after federal funds. Because often they will put in separate proposals, and if they had joined forces when they have complementary capabilities, their competitiveness would be far greater. We're in a unique position of being the honest broker, if you would, to facilitate those types of engagements. And that's exactly, let me just go to here. That's exactly what these research alliances are all about. That is to take an assessment of our capabilities in certain areas throughout the state, medical devices being one, for example. Assess where the strengths are, where the gaps are, then get market back input from industry on what their needs are and where those gaps are, and then provide funding to build up our capabilities, and then also to coalesce the various universities to go after other sources of funding, such as federal and corporate funding. Back to this, an example of one of the projects we funded at USC. The McNair Center for Aerospace Innovation and Research is located at our Innovation Center down the street. And we funded it was considered a pilot project, but ended up being much more than that. And that is they're dealing with composite materials, and you do welding composite materials in a variety of ways, including thermal. And so as such, the joining of those materials, the thermal properties in terms of temperature control and pressure control are absolutely vital to the integrity of that weld. Well, what we were testing was the idea of embedding those sensors that test for thermal properties, and do so in a way, do they affect the integrity of that weld at all? Because now you're introducing a foreign body, if you will, into a key part of the material. The results were fantastic. Not only did it serve to do the necessary monitoring, but also there was absolutely no effect on the structural integrity of the well. We have a number of industry partners on this. There's a patent filed on it, and research is moving forward. That's exactly what these are all about, is to take that first step and then to have it move on from there using other people's money to continue to create a fully commercializable product from these. Over the last few years, over a 5-year period, we invested approximately $2 million a year in academic institutions, and there are quite a few, both companies and institutions themselves, that have received funding from us. And then industry, this is one area that we stood up a part of our organization to focus exclusively on more established industry a couple years ago. Here again, over our lifetime, we have certainly worked with more established industry, but not in a structured way. And so what we do here is several-fold. In particular, we will engage a company, and they could be either a South Carolina company or outside the state, and understand what their highest priority needs are. And that often doesn't happen overnight. You have to establish a trust with a company for them to be willing to open up for you. Once we have that, we then tap into our entrepreneurial community and our academic community in the state to find technology-based solutions to those needs. And then we serve as the broker, the facilitator, for first an initial engagement, and then what we then trust will be a long-term strategic relationship. Now, if it's a South Carolina-based company, everyone wins. We're helping a more established industry in the state. We're building up a capability base, either in entrepreneurs or in academia or both. If it's an outside, an organization or company located outside of South Carolina, we are introducing them to the strength that we have within this state, with the intention then of building those long-term strategic relationships, and with a particular intention of enticing that company to relocate its R&D operations here in the state. We've done a phenomenal job of recruiting in branch manufacturing into the state. A little lesser so when it comes to recruiting in R&D operations, and that's right in our sweet spot. We don't do that alone. We do it very much in concert with the South Carolina Department of Commerce, the Regional Economic Alliances, as well as the local economic development agencies. Matter of fact, one example is a very current one, where we're shortlisted, we being the Columbia area, to recruit in a major tech company. And we've partnered with Richland County, the city, as well as Commerce, to put together an incentive package that will be, I think, very favorable in enticing them in. That's a good example of what we want to do on a more ongoing basis. So this is just a representation of that whole process of understanding what the needs are and finding those solutions. Here's one representative example, a company Prettle, which is a tier 2 supplier to the automotive industry. Their president came to us and said, I'd like to be your guinea pig on this approach. And by the way, I don't expect much out of this first go-round, because I just want to see how the process works, and then we're going to do this on an ongoing basis. So they let us know what their highest priority needs were. We then came up with a list of companies, both SE launch companies as well as other early stage companies, that we thought might have a possible solution. They then down selected that to 7 companies, and they spent a good part of a day, the whole management team, having those 7 companies pitch to them. Now, again, his expectations were that none of those 7 would really meet their needs, when in actuality 2 of the 7 did. And they were establishing relationships, long-term relationships with those companies, and actually took one of the companies to their headquarters in Germany recently. We're planning on doing this with a number of other companies, including BMW later this year, which we're quite proud of, because a company like BMW, you really do have to establish trust with them before they're able to open up to this degree. We also provide grants in this regard, so if you have this relationship or pending relationship with an early stage company and an industry, you might want to first sort of de-risk, if you will, the technology, and that would require a demonstration in a particular application. We will provide some funding to help ease the way towards that relationship, but we'll always require the industry partner to at least match that funding. That has worked to the point where last year it was a 2.5x between what we invested and what the industry partner invested. And then, as I already mentioned, the relocation grants we provide. Just one example, Global Transplant Solutions is an SE launch company that provides the wherewithal to do organ transport, to preserve the organ in a highly effective way. They have a proprietary technology to do that. They needed some help in finding a manufacturer that could make the actual bags and the actual material for those bags. We introduced them to Sealed Air, and they consummated a relationship with them. They also needed a partner to do the filling and shipping of the final product, and we introduced them to Nephron, and they consummated a relationship with them. So we now have a situation where, first of all, it's a highly impactful industry and doing good as well as doing well. But everything from the manufacturer of the material for the bags all the way to shipping, everything is done in South Carolina, and that was facilitated by our staff. And then in terms of the number of companies that we have worked on to recruit into the state, we've got a couple dozen that we were able to successfully bring in. Again, these are all, by definition, the ones that we're working on are technology-based companies. And finally, I've alluded to the facilities that we own and manage. We have one each affiliated with the 3 research universities, and then we have another large facility in Somerville where I'm located, and that's, although not officially an innovation center, is also used for economic development. So for example, when Volvo came in, they occupied essentially our entire 3rd floor, and that was their landing base as they were building their facility, which was about 10 miles up the road from this facility. We also, not included in here, own and manage the Carolina Research Park on Farrow Road. And I mentioned before the McNair Center being a part of our facility. If those of you who have not seen the McNair Center, I would urge you to do so. It's a overused term, state-of-the-art, world-class. This facility stands up to both of those monikers. Truly extraordinary what they're doing. And they're attracting in world-class companies to partner with them, from IBM to Siemens to Samsung to SCRA, a robotics company. And we're providing funding not only to help to build out the center, and we've invested over $2.5 million in those outfit costs, but also individual projects to bring industry in and to partner with them. And obviously one that I left out in terms of partner is Boeing. Virtually all of their external R&D through their facility in North Charleston goes through the McNair Center down the street. And I mentioned before that we do not receive any direct funding from the state. So you probably ask, okay, then where do you get your funding? Several-fold. One, obviously the facilities that we own and manage, the tenant lease revenue from that. I said there was a dramatic shift in SCRA over the last 3 years. One of the more dramatic was the selling of an affiliate called Advanced Technologies International, or ATI. Their business model was is to contract with the federal government to manage R&D consortia on their behalf. In January of 2017, we sold ATI because we felt that it was not core to our mission. There's no reference to ATI in the enabling legislation. So by doing that sale, it allowed us to have a singular focus on our core mission, but it also provided us with some proceeds. And so what we've done is to invest those proceeds and essentially use that as an annuity for ongoing revenue. We invest in companies, these early stage companies, and as they are starting to do successful exits, we have revenue coming in from them. And then finally, importantly, is the Industry Partnership Fund. This is a state tax credit that provides a one-for-one credit on your state tax obligation. And up until this year, the total limit was $6 million. And thanks to the efforts of individuals such as Senator Setzler, we were able to get a bill through this past session, which increases that annual limit from 6 to 7 this year, 8 next year, and then 9 million thereafter. So in terms of both individuals and businesses can contribute to this fund, and it provides, particularly if you're a business, we provide some other ancillary benefits such as marketing, and depending on the level of contribution, we will also provide some pro bono services in terms of technology management for you. So if you have any interest in learning more about that, you can either go on our website, or I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you have. I thank you very much for your time and look forward to any questions you might have.
You have the best state
Mr.
tax.
Maybank.
Excuse me. You have the best state tax credit. Do you sell out on day one, or do y'all have to work hard to get investors?
Well, boy, there's a long answer to that question. So let me give you the short answer. Up until last year, we sold out in 58 seconds. So the first business day of the year, we provided that opportunity for people to contribute, and in less than a minute. Due to some federal regulations that were pending up until a couple weeks ago, that provided some uncertainty with regard to the ability of individuals to deduct on their federal returns. At this point, it appears that will not be available to the individual contributor. Well, it will be, but only up to the $10,000 limit. And that would be $10,000 for your state and local taxes, in addition to what you would contribute to the Industry Partnership Fund. Actually, Senator Graham is helping us to see if we could rectify that issue for us specifically. And he remains optimistic that we can have a resolution so that that particular regulation is not relevant to us. That's the lesser of the good news. The good news is that if you're a business, you are able to then deduct off your federal. So because of that, we are very much focusing our energy on establishing relationships with companies, and have already gotten a number of contributions from companies that are interested in either using their tax money towards a highly impactful program such as ours, and or to get the tax benefits. And we're still getting those contributions from individuals because it's still a good deal at the state level. You still get the one-for-one state tax credit, and you're able to direct those funds towards a highly impactful program. Yes, sir.
When you, for your affiliate startup, do you buy stock? What's an overview of the details of that?
Yeah.
How does that work, and what's security?
And that's a reporter asking you the question.
Well,
What difference should that make?
wait, excuse me? No comment.
That's the difference.
Thank you, counsel. So we invest in or SC Launch Inc. invests in a variety of ways. One is just a straight loan, and we're doing less and less of those. Next is what's called a convertible debenture. That is, it's a loan that can be at a later date converted to equity. And last is like a venture capitalist. We invest in them, and in return, we get X amount of equity associated with that. We normally will not do that unless we have another venture partner, because in general, we don't want to establish the valuation of the company. We want others to do that for us. But we're doing direct equity more and more. And we're also, I mentioned about wanting to participate more in the follow-on rounds. We actually got through what we call a growth strategy, which was just approved by our board, where we're taking that industry programs part of our organization and expanding it and calling it SC Ventures. And so they're going to focus on those later stage type of investments, establish strong relationships with VCs and corporate VCs, and be able to do far more of that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned establishing trust with some of these emerging companies. The step with intellectual property being so prevalent in China and others, seizing on these folks who don't know what they're doing, have a great idea. Do y'all get involved in helping companies protect themselves from that?
Yeah. So John introduced me as a certified licensing professional and didn't know what the heck that was. What that is professionals who help companies or organizations to license intellectual property. So that's one area of expertise that I have. Our head of SC Launch program, Jill Sorensen, is an IP attorney as well. So we provide substantial advice to our client companies with regard to the protection of intellectual property, strategies throughout, and how best to maximize return while also maximizing the protection.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's a personal question. I heard you singing. Are you active in a choir? You have a very beautiful voice.
Yes, I am blessed to be, a little personal. So when I was in high school, I was a basketball player. There was a shock. And I hurt my back in a roller coaster accident. And I was told I couldn't play basketball anymore, and I was devastated. My sister said, well, you have a really good voice. Why don't you join the choir? I said something I'm not proud of. I said something to the effect of choirs for sissies. What I didn't realize is that there are a lot of girls in choir, not in the basketball, so it worked out great. But it also has provided me with an incredible opportunity to tour Europe on multiple occasions, sang for 3 presidents, sang for the Pope, and so it's been a passion of mine throughout my life. I now currently sing for the Singers of Somerville, because this is a very time-intensive job. It's a wonderful community choir that I'm very proud to be a member of. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate you being with us, and you're incredibly busy. I can't believe all that you do, but how wonderful for the state of South Carolina, for our economy and our creative citizens. So thank you for all of them and for all of us. And I have this little token of appreciation for spending time with us.
Next week, we had a little bit of a segue from Roger Struth's introduction. We have Assistant District Governor Eric Davis, who used to be a member of this club, come and present to our club next week.
Thank you. And now, I just wanted to remind you to drop the questionnaires off in the box back there. And thank you for all our visiting Rotarians and guests. Hope you'll come back again. And a special shout out to Jason Snyder, hoping that you will come back and join us. And now, Rusty.